Explanation of symbols on worksheets are as follows. Use coloring crayons to color the picture. Use your finger to follow the track or line or show the correct picture. Use a coloring crayon to draw a line or write a number or sound. Look at the picture and say the number or sound out loud. Use a scissors to cut on the dotted line. Look at the picture. Use these symbols for the lesson of the day, which will be allocated at the top right side of each page. For example, Lesson 1, Prepositions and Directions.
Welcome to My Zone Online School. My name is Teacher Netsai. Our theme is Namibia. Let's sanitize our hands. Rub, rub, rub your hands back, inside and forth. Now your hands and mine are clean. We have sanitized. Rub, rub, rub your hands back, inside and forth. Now your hands and mine are clean. We have sanitized. Now, boys and girls, you must remember to maintain your social distance at all times. Today's lesson, Lesson 3, it's about differences and similarities. Now let's turn to page 12 of our booklet. On page 12, the instruction reads, mark the pots that are different with an X. Now let's look at the buckets that I have on my table right in front of me. Right, I've got 3 buckets in front of me, right on the table. If you look at these buckets, they look almost the same, but there is one bucket that is different. Now let's look at the buckets closely. The color of the buckets is exactly the same. Now let's look again at the size of the buckets. The buckets are of the same size. Now let's look and see what else do these buckets have. If we look at these 2 buckets, the one in the middle has a white handle, and the third one at the last line or in the last place of the row has another handle. Now let's look at the first bucket. Here we've got a bucket, but there is something missing on this bucket. Can we look at the buckets again? Look at all the 3 buckets. There is something that is not the same. Which bucket is different? Yes, this bucket does not have a handle on it. The other 2 buckets have handles. Now, what you will do in your booklet, let me just demonstrate here with this little bucket that looks different. You need to mark the bucket or the picture that looks different. This bucket is different, so I have marked it with an X. Now let's go back to our page 12 of the booklet. There are some pots on page 12. Let's look closely at all these pots. First, we need to identify what is the same on these pots. These pots are of the same size. Are they? There is something different. The sizes of two pots are not the same with the rest of the pots. Let's quickly count the pots before we look at the difference. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 pots. But there are 2 pots that are different. Let's look at the pots and try to see what is the same on all the pots. All the pots have lids on? Yes, they do. Now let's look. Do all the pots have handles? Let's look closely. 2 pots do not have handles. Let's go back and look again on the lids. There is something different on the lids of the pots. Let's look at the top part of the lid. It's called the knob. The knobs are different. Which 2 pots look different from the rest? If you are able to identify the 2 pots which are different, I would like you to mark the 2 pots with an X on them. Let's turn over to page 13. On page 13, the instruction reads, color the pot that is different. Let me read that again. Color the one that is different. We have different kinds of pictures on page 13. In the first row, we have 3 drums. In the second row, we have 3 jars. In the third row, we have 3 balls. And in the last row, which is the 4th row, we have 3 hats. Let's look back on the first row right on top of the page. One of the drums is different. Let's see which one is different. 2 of the drums look exactly the same. Now find the drum that looks different and color it in. Let's move over down to the second row. Look at the jars. There are 3 jars. Look closely. Look at the top. Look at the bottom. Look in the middle and see what is different. The first jar has 2 handles. What about the second one? There is something missing on jar number 2. Let's look at the third jar. It has 2 handles. So which jar is different from the other 2? And color it in if you are able to identify the one that is different. Let's move over just below the jars where we have the 3 balls. Look closely at the pattern of the balls. The ball size are exactly the same, but they have a nice pattern around them. Let's look at the first ball. On your left-hand side, how many stars do you see on the first ball? You can count as you point to the number of stars. Let's look at the one in the middle. How many stars are there in the middle ball? Count and point as you count the stars. Now look at the last ball in the row. How many stars are there? Count and decide which one looks different. Now let's look at the heads in the last row of the picture. We have 3 heads in the row. Look at the first head and see what is different from the rest. Look at the second picture, which is in the middle, and see what is different from the other two. And let's look at the last one and see what is different. Can you identify the difference? Once you have identified the one that is different from the other two hats, I would like you to color it in. Now let's turn over to page 14 of our booklet. On page 14, we have Ellie the alligator. Ellie the alligator loves to eat the most number of pizza pieces if you give him, and Ellie the alligator loves to eat the most number of frogs if you give him frogs. Now let's look. He is here today trying to hunt and find which block has more dots than the other, or which block has the most number of dots than the other. Let me read the instruction on page 14. It says, color the block with the most dots in the top section as well as the bottom section. Now let's focus on the first two pictures right on top of page 14, where we have Ellie the alligator. We need to understand, what does the word most mean? Now I would like you to look at my two containers that I have here. I have put in some magnets in the two containers. The containers are exactly the same height. They both have the same black lids on, but there is something different if we look at what is inside the two containers. Now, which one of the container has the most number of magnets? Which one has the most number of magnets? Is it this one that I'm holding up? Or is it this one that I am holding up? Now, I would like you to understand that this container that I am picking up has the most number of magnets compared to this one. This one is only half full, and that one is full to the top. So this container has the most number of magnets. Let's get back to our page 14 in our booklet. Now we would like to use the same concept that we have learned from the containers that I showed you on the table earlier. Now let's find out which block has the most number of dots. Now we need to count. Let's count the first number of blocks in the first block on your left-hand side. Let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the first block has 8 dots in it. Now let's count the other number of dots in the next block on our right-hand side. Let's count as we point to the dots together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do you still remember how many dots we found in the first block? Yes, there are 8 in the first block and there are 7 blocks in the second block. So which block will Ellie the alligator go for? Ellie the alligator will choose the one with the most number of dots, which happens to be block number 1 on your left-hand side. So I would like you to color in the block, the first block on your left-hand side, because it has the most number of dots. Now let's go down to the next picture below the line. Ellie alligator would love to eat the most number of dots in the block. What you need to do now is to count how many dots do we have in the first block. Count with me. Let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's go to the next block and find out how many blocks do we have in the second block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, which block has the most number of dots? I would like you to color in the correct block with the most number of dots. If you have finished that page, now we move over to page 15 in our booklet. On page 15, the instruction says redraw. We need to look at the dots and pay close attention to the pattern that has been drawn on the left-hand side so that we can copy that pattern exactly as it is on the right-hand side. Now come with me to the board as I am going to demonstrate how you are supposed to do it. Here is my pattern on this side of the dots, and I have another set of dots on the other side. Now what you need to do before you start redrawing on the other side, I would like you to use your index finger to try and trace as you follow this path. Let's join the dots with our pointer finger or our index finger, just like I am doing right now. Let's do it once more. From this dot, we go straight to the next dot, then we go down to that dot, and we go across to the other dot. Now let's move over to the other set of dots that we have on the board. And we would like to copy this pattern exactly as it is on this set of dots. Where do we start? We started on this one, so our first dot is right here. I will do it with you as I am going to demonstrate. We go straight across to that dot. We go down to the bottom dot, and then we go across to the other dot. That is exactly how you are supposed to do it. Now let's look at this board that I have here, the little white board. It also has dots, or it has magnets with a nice pattern that I'm going to put up for you. It's going to look exactly as the one on page 15 in the second row. And on page 15 of the booklet, our pattern looks like this. From this dot, you go down, up, go down, and up. Let's see if it looks exactly as the one in the booklet. I need to correct it. Okay, let's go over again. It's from here, and we go up. That is how it looks in the booklet. Right, now we need to copy the same dots as I have shown you on the whiteboard. First, let's trace with our finger. From this one, we go to the one in the middle, right at the bottom, and we go up, and we stop right there. Now let's copy this pattern over to the next one on the whiteboard. We will start from the green dot to the orange dot, right in the middle, and up to the other orange dot right at the end. And that is how the pattern looks like. Now let's get back to our booklet on page 15. I would like you to redraw from the top. Let's copy the first pattern onto the other dots on your right hand. And then you go to the second row and copy exactly as it is. Remember to trace with your pointer finger on the pattern that has been drawn for you before you attempt to copy the pattern. Now complete all the other dots looking at the pattern on your left hand side and copy it for it to look exactly as the one on the right hand side. Once we are done, it means we have completed this part of the lesson. Well done, boys and girls. I hope you have enjoyed the lesson. Now let's sanitize our hands. Rub, rub, rub your hands back, inside and forth. Now your hands and mine are clean. We have sanitized. Rub, rub, rub your hands back, inside and forth. Now your hands and mine are clean. We have sanitized. Well done, boys and girls. Now remember, you must maintain your social distance at all times. Now it is time for me to say goodbye to Zoe. Zoe, where are you? Bye, Zoe.